Hello, what's goody, my peoples? I'm back again. It's me, myself, and Eyez. Episode 2. Gonna let this play out for a little bit. Put the link in the description for, artists. I like underground indie artists. Hopefully one day it won't necessarily be so underground. I like indie. This one right here is Queen Sanaa. And the wheels fall off. Y'all riding or what? You know what I mean? So it's me again, the missing element, the middle energy. As I told y'all in the first episode. See, I made it back. I'm hoping that this means that, an interest was sparked in you to continue watching a show that, I legit think will go down as the greatest story ever told. Well, all right, it can never be better than, like that biblical Quranic story of Joseph Yusuf. But, you get my point, Now, the first episode ended with our main character, DJ, pulling off an election night surprise win, followed by a continuance of a psyop that started the campaign. Now, remember, at this point in the show, I still didn't like this DJ character. I didn't know any of my folks who liked him either. Like, nobody in the hood was waving Trump flags. Nobody seemed to like him except the people who voted for him. The MAGA rally folks. But that didn't matter because they were clearly the majority, like in the polls at least. I guess it kind of reminded America of who really, who really ran this country, in some form or fashion. So, them racist white folks are still right about something, though. Now, hear me out. See, although they were slave owners, I believe that the men who wrote the Constitution were divinely inspired. Like, at least when they were united in cause, facing their own kind of oppression from a foreign power. I want you to keep that theme in mind for later in the movie. It's definitely reoccurring. And with that being said, the actual US 4A, the Republic, wasn't founded on racism. Now, them 13 original colonies were a different story, though. Slavery most certainly built those colonies up, especially in the South and the Carolinas, Queen Charlotte, Sir Walter Raleigh. We cash crops like a mug, Charlotte is the second biggest banking capital still today, sending money back to London, the Queen, Now, slavery continued long after 1776, even in the North, even in New York. A civil war had to take place in order to unify folks, And DJ getting in the office was certainly starting to feel like the beginnings of a new potential civil war. It definitely was starting to, get thrown out there subliminally. One major thing I think people are not seeing in the background of this movie, that even though DJ ran as a member of Team Red, he also was on Team Blue in the 80s when he backed this dude we're going to call JJ. Now, for anyone with vision, it's fairly obvious that red and blue make purple, somehow, whether it's at the lodge, at the country club, at alumni balls, or outside the courtroom. Folks who put on a show of conflict usually end up as homies behind the scenes, even in rap beefs. DJ, I think, was a little different, though. You thought everybody hates Chris. Like, nah, everybody hates this dude, DJ. Like, at his first debate, there were 11 people on stage. I think another 5 or so that, withdrew right beforehand. So that's basically 16 people with DJ making the 17th. I want you to keep that 17 number in mind for the future. So it's 16 on 1. They didn't want him any more than the other side did. And I think that's because he wasn't purple. I think that was actually the reason why they called him the Orange Man, because, he was truly an outsider. Love him or hate him, he took the stage during them campaign rallies and never let go of the mic. You was going to see him. You was going to feel him no matter what. The schmedia became even more consumed with him now that he was in office. He became the topic of conversation at work and at home. You either had to hate him, especially if he was black. You either had to hate him, and if you was white, if you didn't, it was like you was labeled a racist. If you was black, you was definitely a coon. No way, you was hood and you supported DJ. We wasn't doing that. One thing that did stick out to me from one of the extras in the scene was how quickly DJ stood up and openly did something specifically for blacks. Like not minorities or people of color, the way previous leaders had did. Black folks. Like some of my folks accurately point out that the bill, was in talks before he got into office and that it still hasn't fully been funded. I would say fair point to that. I would just still ask though that, even if just a meaningless political stunt, why didn't the previous guy, Bo, why didn't he do it just a political stunt, just for black folks though? Why didn't he do it? And, how come our current black VP, I'll get into her later, she shows the same unwillingness on things like reparations. So, in the most recent election, there's this homie Cube, he pointed out that there was a platinum plan and it being just for black folks was important because the funds meant for minorities or people of color, like in those bills, black folks usually got less than 10% of the pie. And I think that that's a devilish detail that, few people realize, that there is a system that benefits from the white dots being elite and the black dots being the feet. It's a system that's been in place since the Ice Age started out and them natives of the Caucasus Mountains descended down into the Indus Valley. And once indoctrinated, that system spread worldwide. And the system cannot survive without the black dots being the feet. It uplifts the entire system. So in spite of efforts to address black folks specifically, it did little to calm down all of the racist talk that DJ was getting thrown his way. I made note of that, So after his first 100 days in office, the Confederate flag still ain't flying over the White House yet. We skip a little ahead to May of 2017, and DJ sets off for his first war tour as president. He on a war tour with Obama and my man, because this dude basically trailed him all over the place. We'll get into that in a second. Now, many in the media say it was going to be a disaster because DJ had no chill. He was talking about fake news and he's just all over the place with it, always barking on everybody. First place DJ sets off to is to visit Saudi Arabia. And while he was there, he holds the sword of the king. And he visits Israel and he visits Asia and he goes and takes a picture in the Forbidden City and he walks across the militarized zone from South Korea to North Korea with no bodyguards. It's very gangster if you didn't know. North Korea could have chose to kidnap him and hold all the leverage. He met with both leaders. He handed out the sumo wrestler trophy in Japan, where the emperor usually gives it out. He goes to Buckingham Palace and walks in front of the Queen. He goes to the Vatican and acts like it's a funeral service, but he's grinning from ear to ear. He goes and speaks to all of the Euro leaders and he's cheesing and they just sitting over there all tight-faced. I later find out that this was what I believe to be a big get down or lay downs tour. You see the tragic events of 2001 knock down people's will to have freedom. I know I'm going back a little bit, but everything ties together. Now, a global terror threat convinced Americans that it would be in our best interest to let the G-men spy on us because they ops could be anyone or no one. This was just a free pass to just spy on everybody. But here's the thing, though. Bullets, they have no names. Data gathering is almost in the same thing. It's in the same vein. Now, if a measure was put in place to capture all of the data sent and store it all at the one of them alphabet places, then terrorist, the patriot, illegal or illegal, civilian or government employee, everybody, everything will be underneath that net. And then today, that AI can come through and comb through that metadata and produce patterns and profiles, get a whole, we've been keeping an eye on you for some time now, Mr. Anderson, and they just pulled your file basically. Now, back in 2002, people could at least gather the information. They might not be able to interpret it yet, but they could at least gather it. No one is perfect. We all have skeletons in our closet. There is a saying in Christianity that folks are born into sin. Babies are born into sin. I don't agree with the implications of that statement per se. Because, see, it's not that it's in a baby's nature to sin. The baby is, however, born into an environment where he or she is surrounded by it. The baby has to be corrupted from its naturally pure state to become a sinner, in my view. Now, in Islam, people baptize themselves 5 times a day and seek forgiveness of the sins committed since the last baptism. Being in a state of constant repentance keeps the eyes on the prize and keeps you humble, especially when it comes to like chastising others. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone is a popular phrase from the Bible. I definitely agree with that statement. Practicing what you preach is essential. Otherwise, that hypocrite cloud will hover over you. Now, that just applies to us, everyday folks. But there are some of us that wish to become more than human. They wish to become gods, or like at the very least attain God-like power. There are some that think that they can do as thy wilt in order to get it. No matter how many loved ones or innocent strangers die, as long as thy will is done, everything's cool with them. This runs counter to nature, in my view. In their efforts to become gods, they try to take over everything, every system, every country. They have generational wealth that goes back millennia to when this system first started. That's what the deep state is to me. The man, the system, the beast, whoever runs it, that's deep state. Now, in spite of that, my faith in the Creator doesn't allow for a world in which, evil wins over good, like forever, all the way in the end even. It may appear along the way that they winning, but that end result, it has to be that the good side is the victor. It becomes easy at that point for me to see how the Creator would allow evil to execute a tragic event in order to gain power, only to have that newfound power be used against them. With the, alphabet database being in possession of all that information, all it took was a person like DJ coming in to be able to weaponize that information. If committing evil deeds, you committing it, but you also in control of the info, it's easy to cover your tracks up, keep the info buried. But, if a person comes in there and he ain't on the team, then, the ops basically have all of the info that they need to ruin you. And it's important to really understand that when you start looking at why people from both sides and basically everybody looked like it, they were ganging up on this guy because he wasn't a part of their program, but now he was basically in control of all of the control buttons. So, he steps into office and he's now in possession of all of the dirt that's been dug up over the years. And then now this world trip, this get down to lay down tour, many people were very quietly removed right in front of us. While on this world tour, the shadow presidency that started with the spy campaign continued. Bo and his boy JK, LMNOP, they went on their own little world tour. They coincidentally went to the same places that DJ went to. It was reported in alt media that Bo and JK were in fact meeting with all of the same leaders that JK had just met with, and basically were there to try to undermine whatever he either was about to agree to or had just agreed to. Now, that remains unconfirmed for now, but it definitely stays on the board. Bo and JK started, basically stalking behind DJ, and that was just kind of weird to say the least. Now, on the surface, it does look like Bo was trying to exert power over DJ, but DJ was chief at this point, so that Bo power grab was working against the acting government in place. So, that treason cloud kind of blows back around again. DJ returned from his world treks and gathers all of the top military personnel in the White House for a dinner. And that's when this happened.
You guys know what this represents?
Well,
Maybe it's the calm before the storm.
what's the storming?
Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm, Mr.
We have the
President?
world's great military people in this room, I will tell you that. And we're going to have a great evening. Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Now, what did he mean by storm? Who was going to get drenched? Well, you're going to have to tune into the next episode to find out. And if you're still watching at this point, I applaud you and thank you. I know I'd be on a different type of time, but it's rooted in logic. Now, with that being said, thanks for your time. It's the most valuable thing we have. Peace be upon you. I'm just me.